So I want to introduce our instructor for today for work with buyers and sellers. We are really kind of coming down to the end of these Ignite sessions. We come a long way in this material, and I think some of these final classes are some of the best. Corin Thompson is out of the Eugene Springfield office where I'm at. He has over 15 years of experience in risk assessment, income and credit analysis, as well as commercial and consumer lending. And Corin enjoys being a resource for his clients and fellow agents in all facets of the real estate experience. And so I'll go ahead and turn things over to Corin for work with buyers and sellers. Hey, Corin.
Hey, Aaron. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. It's good to see faces on the other end of Zoom. So if you can keep your video on, that'd be awesome. Most of the time I would be sharing my screen. You can try and message, just know that I might be slow. So if I don't respond, maybe just unmute and ask the question verbally. That helps me keep track of where I'm at and where you're at. But yeah, like Aaron said, I was in commercial lending for 15 years prior to getting into real estate. My wife, who is a part of my team, the Thompson team here at Keller Williams, came with over 20 years of mortgage lending experience herself. So between the two of us, we have almost all lending experience covered other than payday loans. Pretty happy to say I never got into that world. Don't really ever want to do that either. But with real estate, like I said, we're a team. We rock and roll here in Lane County. So I think from what I understand and what Aaron just alluded to is you guys are coming to the close, assuming you started at the beginning of the Ignite series. And so this is today we're working with buyers and sellers. So hopefully you took the class where you covered getting the buyers and sellers or finding them. Sound like Jess, maybe you're doing part of that activity as far as learning what open houses look like. Kind of how it's run, how successfully it's run, and how maybe not successfully it's run. Josh Cooley team is a great way to learn for sure. He's very successful, and his team is as well. I find it beneficial to actually go to open houses hosted by other agencies and see the difference. And then you can compare kind of what those look like. I also did that when I first started. So just something to think about. I know sometimes when I'm driving around, I see an open house, regardless of whose it is, I go say hi, and sometimes pretend like I'm not a realtor until they ask, just to see what information they can get from me. I don't lie. I don't divulge the information until they ask, and you'd be shocked at how often you can get in, out, see the whole house, even have a full conversation with a realtor that's hosting, and they have no clue who you are or what you do. Let's see here. So it sounds like most of you guys are pretty new. Tamara, you're out of the Southern Oregon, it sounds like. Kathy, are you here, Eugene Springfield, or are you in a different one?
Southern Oregon as well.
Okay, and then Jess, you're here in Eugene Springfield. You said South Eugene, is that right? Or okay, cool. So we got a couple different market centers. I think primarily it's all going to be similar information that we're talking about. It's going to be pertinent for all different ways going about things. Let's see here. Literally just did this. There it is. It's a big green thing in the front of my thing on how to share. Let's try that. Okay. So like I said, today is work with buyers and sellers. Excuse me. We are going to learn how once you have them in contract, or at least have that assumed contract, how to work with them and get them either the house listed or find them the house, go through the search process and writing an offer and that type of thing. Let's see if I can make this work now. There it is. Okay. So if you've taken the ones, like I said, you covered winning the seller and buyer. Now we're going to talk on how to work with them. You already covered the daily success system. Okay, at the end of the session, you'll hopefully be able to identify the key information to build success with buyer and seller, employ strategies to assist buyers and sellers with their decision making, build a strong success foundation relationship with your clients and co-op agent. Okay. So this is from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Has anybody or everybody read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Raise your hand if you have. One. Okay.
In the process.
In the process. Great. Well, that's a good start. Honestly, just to hit on that for a half second, that specific book is a little bit old. However, the information is still relevant for the most part. I believe they're trying to work on kind of an addendum, I guess you could say, Millionaire Real Estate 2. However, there's some copyright issues, so they can't technically come out with Millionaire Real Estate 2. But there's a lot of good information. I read / listened to it when I first started, and got a lot of information. To be honest, the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 chapters, maybe even less than that, were relevant. The whole rest of it was way over my head. And then I went back and re-listened to it later on, after a little time had passed and I'd actually done some transactions, and a few more chapters were more relevant. So every time you go back and re-listen to it, it becomes like you get more out of it, is what I'm saying. So don't just read or listen to it once and go, oh, I've got it all. There's a lot of great information in there. So as you can see on the screen, virtually every top producing agent we have ever worked with has a deep and almost inherent sense of service. They have a servant's heart and place their buyers or sellers' real estate experience above all else. They are always thinking service. All right. So the point in the transaction we are focusing on today is the time between getting a signed buyer or listing agreement and receiving or making an offer. However, just as you are going to take aspects of lead generation into the transaction, you'll of course take aspects we discussed today through and past closing. Our first topic is success with clients. Let's cover the things you can do with both buyers and sellers to make this process as transparent and smooth as possible. So the key to success with clients is communication. Communication. There's no such thing as over communicating. So far you've probably covered this in many ways. You've heard it many different classes, different times. Some ways that we have is Command in the KW app. If you haven't dug into those, I would recommend it. They can be a little daunting at first, but definitely recommend digging into those. They're a great resource, free resource for you through Keller Williams. That helps you communicate with value, and not just, hey, you got a lead for me, and asking for business, but just bring value, be a resource with your sphere of influence, leads and clients. Just remember that they are trusting you with what is likely the biggest financial decision, and what will serve as a foundation for their lives and the lives of their family. So just remember that it's a very important transaction for them. It's not just another one for you. This may be your first one, it may be your 100th one, but just remember that when you're working with them, you're just trying to reestablish or establish that relationship from the ground up. Like I said before, it's important to recognize that you very rarely can over communicate. If they ask you to communicate less, that's a different story. But until they do that, always continue to over communicate or communicate a lot. Because there is so many different steps. Even if they did it last year, they probably don't remember the right way or all the steps. That's our job, is to help them understand that. In addition to the 4 underlying ideas, you need all your communication with clients to convey. Remind ourselves of the 3 levels of service, again, from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Remember, by keeping these levels in mind, you will serve your clients to the highest level possible. So number 1 is purpose. Masters of service have a clear understanding of why they should be hired, and it can articulate it to anyone at any time. Great service begins with a clear purpose for why someone should work with you. That's a tough one. Actually, I think really the first two are kind of a tough one for newer agents to have the confidence to relay that to people, both their purpose and their value proposition. It's tough to get it out of your head that I'm new. Why would people choose me? Right? A lot of new agents go through that struggle. And so really trying to figure out one, why you have gotten into real estate, what's your purpose, and then you can convey that to your client by saying, I have a passion for real estate, or I have this background and this is how I can be a resource for you. And that goes into the value proposition. Value proposition, the best agents can translate their purpose and why people should hire them into a specific set of services they will provide. So literally making a list for your buyers and making a list for your sellers, saying, here's everything I do for you. This is why you pay me what you pay me, because I can give this to you. Some other agents can do it, some can't. But this is what I provide. So making a list helps you have the confidence, and also a piece of paper you can hand to them to support what you're telling them. Fiduciary, highly productive agents provide a level of service based on their commitment to act as a fiduciary for their clients. They place their clients' interests above all others, even their own. A fiduciary brings a level of care and trust to the relationship that a functional agent does not. All right, let's dig deeper into that last number 3 there, fiduciary. So you may have not heard it, depending on if you've participated in any other class. But when you operate as a fiduciary for your clients, you're in the right to be their expert of choice. Does anybody know or remember the difference between functionary and fiduciary? Unmute and say it if you do.
Is it a legal obligation?
You are correct. By the letter of your license, yes, you have a fiduciary responsibility for your clients. So a functionary is kind of what it says. You have functions, you do them, and that's all you care about. That's all you focus on. So you have specific tasks for relationship with the client. They do the job by dotting the I's and crossing the T's. A fiduciary is in a high trust relationship with clients and always puts their best interest at the forefront, even before the agent's own. So yes, it is our fiduciary responsibility once we're in contract or have a perceived contract with a client, that we put as long as it's legal, that we put their what they tell us to do first. All right. So in some states, dual agency is illegal. Is Oregon legal or not legal to do dual agency?
It's legal.
Legal.
It is legal. You are correct. So let's talk about that dual agency. It is legal. So what that means is you're working with both the seller and the buyer on the same transaction. So though it is legal in many areas, it's not really advisable, especially as a newer agent. Many infractions that endanger an agent's license stem from this practice. Being in a fiduciary relationship with your client means making all decisions based on their best interest alone. This is challenging when you are working with two parties with competing interests, right? If you're buyer and seller wants the highest amount of money, the buyer wants to pay the lowest amount of money and make sure it's a good house, right? So those are directly competing, and you're the only human involved, right? So as far as negotiating, so meaning, like, will your buyer expect that you're telling them everything about the house? If you're representing the seller, are you going to hide stuff from them? They may think it, you may not be doing it. But then on the flip side, if you're not, if you're hiding things or disclosing private information on the seller's behalf, then you're breaking that fiduciary as well. Oops. So I've never done it. I don't recommend it. For me, it's not worth the extra commission. my reputation is, and I'm sure Southern Oregon is the same thing. Here in Eugene or Lane County, it's a really small community. Everybody knows everybody, despite being the second biggest city in Oregon. I mean, there's about a 2-degree separation of everybody in town, and I'm sure Southern Oregon is probably very similar to that. So if you get a bad reputation, somebody, even if you didn't do it, somebody has the perceived notion that you didn't have their best interest at heart. It could potentially cost you way more than just the one commission. Are you guys familiar with the Y4C2Ts? Anybody?
Learning them.
Yeah, so don't feel bad. I can barely say the acronym, let alone tell you everything it's about. But basically it's be a good human and be a good agent and do the right thing. That's effectively summarizing it's WI 4 C's, 2 T's, and then ES at the end. So there's a whole, well, I think we cover it later on. We'll actually outline it. But basically one of those W's is the win-win trust. And so when you're doing a deal, you want to be, you want to have a win-win on both sides and then still have that trust when you're all done. And that's what this is covering, this dual agency, is you want to make sure that there's opportunity to continue that afterwards. If it's not a win-win deal, then it's not the right deal. All right. So we talked about the 3 levels of service. Revisited being in a fiduciary relationship with clients. You could see those, as the what of being a great agent. Now let's talk a bit about the how of being a great agent. How you reach the 3 levels of service for your clients is largely about communication and education. As a real estate agent, you're immersed in buying and selling every single day of the houses. It's your job, and for a lot of us, it's our passion as well. I'm gonna be honest with you, if you don't have a passion for it, you may be in the wrong industry. It's a lot of work. But anyway, I digress. But let's see here. For our clients, this is something that they may have never done. Even if they are a repeat buyer or seller, they're unlikely to do this more than every 8 years or so, according to the NAR statistics. And I've been doing this for a little while. About every 6 months, you have a completely different industry. So your clients, there's no way they're up to snuff on everything that's going on. Stakes are huge. For most of us in the United States, our homes are our single biggest asset. So therefore, you are going to demonstrate your expertise by educating your client on the realities of the market, as well as their personal real estate process. And you are going to do it often. To do this, first, you need to set expectations for the process and for communication. A key component to educating your client is to review the entire process. You've likely already touched on it during your buyer or listing consultation. It's a good idea to just briefly go through everything, but I always do that and then say, don't worry, I know there's 100 bazillion steps here. It's my job to tell you where we're at, what we just finished, and what the next step is. That's how I always do every single step throughout a transaction. Like I said, it's a complicated and emotional process. People don't remember everything the first time you tell them, especially when it isn't in proximity, meaning, like, you look for houses for 6 months, they're not going to remember everything you told them about the buying process 6 months ago. So this is actually true for almost everything in our lives. If I ask you what you're having for dinner a week from today, would you know? Anybody? No, I'm lucky if I know tonight. Do you, Jess, you raise your hand, you know what you're having a week from now? I'm impressed.
Yeah, we always do pizza on Monday nights.
Oh, you're a Monday pizza, okay.
Yeah.
Most people's Friday pizza. You switch it up. I like it.
Yeah. So we're lucky it's Monday when you ask that question.
It's great. I love it. So you're having pizza tonight and next week. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. All right. Well, I mean, you can, that's a general term. Of course, in your case, you know what you're having. That's great. Okay. Let's see here. So to the point is, that's meals not in your near sites. You got a lot going on in the next week, even, right? Or even sometimes days. You're much more interested in your next meal, picking up your dry cleaning, getting a present for your niece's birthday, et cetera, et cetera. Whoops. But so it's the same with buying and selling the process. For example, if you told the buyer they need to get out to see properties the same day they hit the market 2 months ago, when they were focused on getting their down payment together, they likely won't remember the details. If you're now setting up their search, you should update them on how quickly the market is moving in their desired neighborhood and price point. So obviously this is changing. A couple of years ago, you had to see it within 2 hours hitting the market, otherwise you had no chance. At least here in Eugene, it's a little bit slower if it's priced right though. However, I've seen things go for the same day, like literally within hours. And then I've seen some sit for months. So it's important for us to know the market as well. Make it clear why it's important to shift their schedules around to the point of inconvenience to see a house that fits their criteria. Again, that's if it's you feel like it's really well priced and it's going to go quickly. Give them a text or a call and say, hey, this is in your criteria. You need to go see it now. Yeah, at the same time, you also need to remind them that if they see a house they like, they need to put in an offer as soon as possible. Some people say if you sleep on it, you might not sleep in it. So a lot of people are like, oh, I need the night to sleep on it. I don't know. And then they wake up in the morning and it's pending. So as long as you do your job and say, all right, this is priced really well in this area, it's going really quickly, and they choose to sleep on it, they may be upset, but hopefully they won't be upset at you because you did your job of telling them, I don't recommend that, but I understand where you're coming from. Same goes for sellers. Just because you covered how chaotic the first week on the market might be during the listing presentation 2 months ago, doesn't mean they remember. Reiterate how important it is to be flexible for showings. For most people, it's very rare to have to make such big decisions in such a short period. Prepare your clients for this change at their day-to-day pace. This is especially important as you get to the time-sensitive portions of the contract. Absolutely. Often contracts require an answer within 24 hours, if not less, in hot markets. Therefore, you should make sure that your seller knows once the house hits the market, they will respond to your texts and calls immediately. And to tell you if they're going on vacation or out of town or limited service because they're camping during the summer, those things you got to think about. Remember, you're always staying in communication, setting and reiterating expectations for this process. All right, set document expectations. You will likely need to go over the contract before you ever see a house with your buyers and before showings begin with your sellers. By going over it now, when there isn't time pressure, they will have some familiarity with it before they need to rush and put an offer quickly, decide or an acceptance. At each stage, review with them where you are and where you're going. Has everybody looked at a sales agreement, or i.e. a contract? I'd recommend, looking at it before you have to go over it with a client, so you can kind of sound somewhat intelligent if you do go over it. I don't actually go line item by line item with my clients, but if you have that type of a client that wants to, make sure you're prepared for it, because I've gotten some pretty screwy questions when I submit it for a review that go, what's this line item here? And I have to go back and look at it and be able to intelligently ask or answer rather. So it's a good idea to be familiar with it. In addition to the contract or sales agreement, can you guys think of any other documents that you might need for your clients? Anything else about the process that you might need a document for? Any other disclosures? Bueller. So we don't see them as much in this market, but appraisal waivers were happening a lot a couple of years ago, and we may see them depending on how if the prices are going up and down. People really interested on it. So that's an example, Jess.
Yeah, what is the purpose of waiving the appraisal? Don't you need it to acquire the loan?
That's a great question. It's really a lender-based waiver potential. It also depends on how much down your buyer client has. So if they have a really large down payment, there's a high likelihood that the mortgage lender is going to waive that appraisal requirement, because the loan to value is going to be so low that they don't care what the value is, because there's so much wiggle room there that even if the value drops, let's say 15-20%, they still know that they're covered, right? So that's an option. Also, if somebody's paying cash, they don't care. I mean, they're willing to pay for it. They may want the appraisal just for kicks and giggles, to make sure they're not really overpaying it. But typically with a cash transaction, appraisals are definitely not required unless the buyer really, really wants it. But that was happening a lot because a couple of years ago, you may or may not know, that people were offering $50,000, $100,000 over asking price, and they were concerned that it wasn't going to appraise for that. So they had to have the cash in order to make up the difference. But it was a way people were winning the houses by waiving the appraisal. Then the seller could have the confidence that, yes, this is a really, really good offer, but if they're getting 100% financing and offering 100,000 over what the asking price is, most likely they're not going to be able to cover that gap between what an appraisal came in and what they're offering. So then you have to go back to the market, basically. Inspection waiver is something that comes up a lot. I would strongly recommend advising your client never to do this, but that's their personal choice. There is a inspection waiver document that I have my client sign if they choose to waive the inspection. That helps cover me if something comes back that, you know, they missed because they didn't get an inspection. But I never advise waiving an inspection, even if it's a brand new house. Sometimes there's still things that pop up. Lead-based paint disclosure on older houses. There's a certain threshold where you have to have that. That's a seller's disclosure to the buyer. Property disclosure or seller's property disclosure is basically anything the seller knows wrong about the house, they have to disclose. They can't hide it, and if they do, then that's a whole nother issue. So at each stage, there's going to be the next step, right? Like I said before, just make sure you continue to update your clients throughout the process. So they're not, even if you think it's the most mundane step in the entire process, tell them what's going on. Again, there's no such thing as over communicating. So for example, when talking to the buyers, just submitted their offer, you would tell them how long the seller has to get back to them. So the offer expiration, what the outcomes might be. They always have 3 options: accept as is, a counter, or reject it outright, and what the basic steps would be in each of these 3 scenarios. We should cover this a little bit more today. So we've talked already a bit about communication. Set communication expectations. Setting those expectations for communication. Some agents feel like they can never turn their phone off or take a day off, especially as a newer agent. You really feel that pressure to, I got to be on all the time because that's just what we do. That's not a way of life. That's a recipe for burnout is what that is. So it's important to set that expectation. And initially when you're getting your feet wet, you know, you might be able to work that, but the earlier you set it, the happier you're going to be with the way things turn out. So just let them know if you're going to turn your phone off at a certain time in the evening, or won't turn it on until a certain time in the morning. Just be straight up with them. You know, if it's an emergency situation, or, you know, you're in a high negotiation, you know, you can say, hey, there may be exceptions. I'll let you know that I'll have my phone on after 7 p.m. tonight, because I know that there's some time sensitive stuff. But setting that expectation, I mean, I'm assuming all of you guys have had jobs before this. If you're in an office job, are you expected to answer your phone all the time? You know, it's a little bit different because we're in sales, you know, obviously, but you got to set that boundary. Otherwise, your client's going to walk all over it, intentionally or unintentionally. It's just the way it is. And then, yeah, just let them know you're going to check your messages first thing in the morning. So if you shut it off and they, say 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. and they text you at 8:02, you'll reply at 8:02 a.m. because that's when you turn your phone back on. And that way they're more than happy to text you after hours, but you won't respond until the next day. And then ask how your clients prefers to be communicated with. Some people hate phone calls and only want to do texting. If that's the case, then say, well, there's going to be some times where we need to have an actual phone call because it's easier to have a discussion about some of these more complicated things, but I will primarily text you with updates and other things. But just set the expectation that you're going to have to talk at some point. It's just impossible to do it via text or email, the whole thing. Also, it's a safety thing because they may be, if you've never met them, they may not be real. So just be aware of that. That doesn't happen very often, but it is something to be aware of. Let's see here. Should it be a group text? Like if there's spouses, one works nights, one work days, should you group text? Should you just only work with one during certain hours? They have children, prefer don't communicate between, dinner time, that kind of stuff, whatever. All right, setting contingencies. What will happen if a home comes on the market that is perfect for your buyers the weekend your sister is getting married out of state? And when we say your sister, we're talking about you as the agent. Have a plan and communicate it well in advance. So in instances like that, that's coming up, right? You're probably going to know that a few months, if not a long time in advance. Get a hold of other agents, set up a way to make that work. So that way you're not surprising them when they call you up and say, hey, I found this perfect house and oh, you can't show me this house. They already know that there's a showing agent or somebody else that's going to help them out, but you're still their agent. It helps avoid confusion and frustration and going with whoever's hosting the open house rather than you. Let's see here. Okay. Set up-to-date market expectations. Updating your client's view of the market is another way for you to show your expertise. They need to understand the realities of the market they are in. Is it a seller's market or an extreme seller's market? Are house sales slowing down to become more of a buyer's market? National trends in housing are often on the news. However, especially in our area, that doesn't mean your clients are paying attention or that the trend nationally is the same as your market. That's in Eugene, Springfield, especially. That's a huge thing. The scary national news is what everybody hears and listens to, but it's sometimes dramatically different for your individual market. So make sure you're up to date on your market stats and can tell them in a good way why the national news is, for lack of a better term, clickbait most of the time. Set clear intervals in which you will re-educate your clients on the current market. A move from a median of 60 days on the market to 45 can have an extreme impact on how quickly your client will find or sell a home, and therefore on the plans they have surrounding that sale. Be sure to translate what the market means to them. In an extreme seller's market, where houses are going for an average of 10% over asking, should you be looking at the top of their price point? No, because if you're looking at top dollar and they have to go 10% over, they can't afford it. You're showing them houses they can't afford, and you're setting yourself and them up for disappointment. So in that kind of a market, explain that you are setting your buyers up for success by showing them houses below their price point. If that changes, just let them know. Last year or so, things have slowed down a little bit. I'm looking more at the top range of some of my clients' houses. Now, the opposite of that, the interest rates have been fluctuating. So you have to be careful there too, because what was last week the top of their range, this week could be way over their range because of the impact interest rates have on that. So just make sure you're reporting that you are staying up to date on it. It could be weekly, it could be, every other week, it could be every month. Just depends on your preference and your client's preference, how much they want to be updated. So KW kind of prides itself on being a technology company. And so therefore we have some technology you can leverage to help you show your expertise clearly and consistently and keep your clients up to date on where you are and where you're going to in the process. Utilize the custom checklist and smart plans and opportunities in command. So they're already kind of there a little bit. You can tweak them to make your own. Market updates can be a part of your custom checklist and smart plans. Cover those a little bit. Oh, in the contract to close session. So that's a different session, not here. Share your KW app. You can get it set up. You can actually have a buyer's consultation and a seller's consultation like list in there. So when they download your app, they can actually go in and read everything that you offer from a buyer side and a seller side. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do in the app as well, but it also basically makes them sign up for it. So it immediately gives you all their contact information, which is good. It also shares yours with them. Also, you want to make sure you keep those up to date on your app because it could change if you adjust or things adjust in your market, obviously. Two things that you should keep in your checklists on there is asking for reviews and referrals. And those are important things to ask for. And those can be asked for throughout the process, not just at the end. And we'll cover that a little bit more. So 3 steps to gaining referrals. You might be thinking, we haven't even put in an offer on a house. Why am I asking for reviews and referrals? Well, hopefully you're already providing value. Like we talked about earlier, setting that value add, value proposition. What are you doing for your clients? And that's the first step on to gaining referrals and reviews, hopefully good ones. From the beginning, tell your client, throughout this process, I'm going to give you amazing service and earn your trust so that you'll want every member of your family to work with me. You can rephrase that however you want, but that's a script to think about. And it's okay to say that. 68% of sellers who use an agent found their agent through a referral by a friend or family member. So that's a pretty staggering statistic, right? 68% of sellers had somebody tell them, hey, I either use this agent, I know this agent, they're a friend of mine. That's a huge percentage. And if you're not asking for that all the time, you're going to miss out. So 3 simple ways to gaining referrals. Provide value. We talked about that, right? Provide stellar service, education, advice, and be empathic or care. Truly care about your clients. Don't think about the next thing you're going to say. Listen to what they have to say and ask deeper questions. Ask for help. Let people know that your business is based on referrals, whether it is or not. It should be, because they're a lot easier to get than cold calling, in my opinion. Your conversation that's great. Oh, your conversations book. I guess you guys have one of those. I don't know, you may or not, but anyway. Basically you just say I rely on referrals. I say my business is almost completely repeat and referral business. So I like working with great people. So far, our transaction's been really nice. It's been pleasant. Who else do you know that I can help? And set that tone early, so that way throughout the process, when you continue to ask for it, they're going to start actually thinking about it rather than you drop it at the end and they're like, oh my God, I'm so excited about the keys to my house. I don't know anybody at this point. And then reward the behavior, not the result of the referral. So as soon as a client gives you a name and phone number or says, hey, I got somebody, and then they actually connect you or that person reaches out to you, reward that, not whether or not you actually close a transaction with that referral. Because that encourages them to continue to give you contact information and continue to think about you. If you wait until you actually close a deal with a referral, it's a lot less common. And they probably have already forgotten the fact that they gave you a referral. So reward it early and make sure that it's the action, not the result. And then ask for reviews throughout the transaction. This one's a little tough for me. Just because, you know, it's kind of interesting to be like, hey, give me a 5-star review. And then a month later, hey, we closed on this deal. Give me another 5-star review. And maybe I'm thinking about it a little bit weird. But it's your comfort level. The more reviews online, the better. That's just plain and simple. So, I mean, if someone's comfortable giving you 15 reviews, then that's great. But it's really just to get that review from somebody. And then some questions. Has anyone in you know, at your work, at your home, or your, you know, your family, your friends, give them examples of who they might refer to you. But as far as reviews are concerned, excuse me, have anybody here needed a plumber or any contractors for a house? You guys all rent or own a house? You guys need contractors, right, at some point, right? How did you just Google that, or like did you ask people who they knew?
I actually do a couple of different things. I mean, yeah, I'll ask some people that I know who they've had a great experience with, but then I go online and I look at the reviews.
Bingo.
To see the feedback from people that I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point is, yeah, you might get word of mouth or people, you know, let's be honest, if you post on social media, hey, I need a plumber, you're going to get 15 different answers probably, right? And then you're like, oh God, how do I not offend some of these people that I know kind of, and like, I didn't use their plumber, blah, 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 blah. You know, if you go on and look at the reviews, you can then narrow it down and say, well, this one, in addition to my friends saying they're really good, they have 150 5-star reviews, so I'm going to use them, right? Same goes for like a restaurant, right? You're going to go out to eat. First thing you're probably going to do if you don't know the restaurant is go on somewhere online and figure out whether or not they're rated well or not. So it's just, in today's society, reviews are huge. And you can also ask for professional reviews. So in our industry, we work with a lot of other professions, idle escrow, lenders, contractors, all those people, when they work with you, offer to give them a review and then ask for one in return. That way you're offering something, not just asking for something. So it's a great way to get professional reviews as well. If you feel like the transaction went really crappily, don't ask for a review, just as a fair warning. You can if you want, but if you feel like they're going to give you a really bad review, then it might be worth just not asking for that one. But that's up to you. So this is what's that?
Like a really important component of referrals is like the opposite of it. When people say, do not work with them, whatever you do not hire this company. And sometimes like those can be like just as influential or devastating as the positive.
Yeah. And unfortunately, most people don't think about writing a review unless it's bad. So that asking for one in a good transaction is helping to combat those ones that just take it upon themselves to be like, oh my God, Corin is a terrible realtor, and post it out there. You can't do anything about it either. It's permanent, right? Once it's out on the internet, then you can't take it down. So asking for those positive reviews can help offset those hopefully very, very rare instances where somebody's just that upset with you that they go out there on a tirade and trash you online. So this on the screen here is just a great way for you to ask for the review, as well as kind of get permission to share it on your social media or advertising. Jesse, I know you're looking into potentially open houses. When you do get reviews, sometimes I don't print out all of them, but I'll print out a couple of more recent and really, really nice ones and put that somewhere throughout my open house. So it's not just me saying, hey, I'm a really cool realtor, I do open houses, use me. It's like, here's an actual client or business partner that said they liked me too. So something for you guys all to consider. Seller-oriented reviews gain attention when they address things like the client's home sold quickly, they got their asking price or above. That's not always the case, but it's great when it does happen. They were impressed by the service. Can you guys think of any other seller oriented statements that would be persuasive in a client testimonial?
I think things surrounding like honesty and integrity are important in the business.
Yeah, what about like negotiation? Because sellers, I mean, you have to do a lot of negotiation. Sometimes they say that, you know, because the seller wants the top dollar, right? So sometimes negotiation, they're a good person, they're relatable, communication is always key. Buyer-oriented reviews persuade when they say things like the buyer found their perfect home quickly, the agent negotiated a great price, so there's negotiation. Transaction went smoothly, they were impressed by service. Those can go both ways, right? Obviously, but you know, either one, as long as they're touching on some points. So if you want, you could delicately put that on your review requests. We send out an email anywhere from right after closing up to a week after, depending on if we know they're going to move right away. We want to wait to give them some time to move in, otherwise they're going to lose the email request. And then we follow up weekly for 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks if we don't see a review coming in, and to say, hey, just friendly reminder, you're really busy moving in or out of your house. We'd love it if you took a half second and did a review. All right, my favorite word in the Keller Williams verse is ahas. And I'm being somewhat sarcastic, but it is basically, we use it a lot. So you're going to hear it a lot if you haven't already. It's essentially, did you get anything out of what we just talked about? Any ahas?
I actually have several aha moments. You know, I like the fact of when you were talking about getting reviews on how you performed for an open house for someone. I think that's fantastic. That's a really good way to market yourself more as well, in helping your team or your network. And just a couple of things on the, you know, the setting the expectations all the way through the process. You think you know them all, and then you start talking about them and it's like, oh wait, yeah, let me write that one down. There's so many things and so many steps to remember. I mean, it's kind of getting into this industry is like drinking from a fire hose, so it's really good to revisit those things.
I literally use that analogy. You are absolutely 100% correct.
I use it a lot.
It is. It eventually slows down a little bit, but like I said, about every 6 months, you're relearning something. You know, it's like, how are we going to do that today? Thanks for sharing that, Tamara. I appreciate it. Any of the other Kathy or Jess? No. Okay. Yeah.
I
Jess?
appreciate I remember, it's not really an aha, but I appreciate you bringing to the forefront of the brain, the millionaire real estate agent. Yeah.
Yes.
To review that one.
You will get a lot of ahas from that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. It's always a good idea. You know, like Tamara kind of said, you know, jotting it down or just, you know, in front of mind, jotting it down so that way you can go back and review it. Maybe find that piece of paper in 3 months that you're like, oh, that's right, I took that class with Corin and I had a couple of ahas. I forgot that I even knew about that. I still do this. Honestly, I have like a backpack I take everywhere, and sometimes I clean out. I'm like, oh crap, that's right, I took a bunch of really good notes and I forgot them. So you're not alone if you do that. Let's see here. All right, so we've covered a lot so far. Thank you for sharing your ahas or just some things that you thought about. You know, from dual agented reviews and referrals. And most importantly, we've talked about the key ways to create happy client relationship. Consistently and clearly communicate regarding the current market and the process of buying and selling. All right, so now let's talk specifically about what buyers need from you. All right, so this statistic, this is an interesting one. So let's look at the chart that you're looking at there. So what they want most from their agent is find the right home to purchase. Of course, they're looking for a house, right? So some things to think about though. Everybody's got access to Zillow or Redfin or, you know, the online search engines, right? So that sometimes our value is undermined by that. If all they really want from us is to help them find the right home, right? So you have to be able to show that value add of why they should use you to help them find a home, even though that's 52% of people what they want from you. If you're not really giving them and showing them that you're looking at houses as well, and just relying on them finding it on Zillow, you're diminishing your value to them. And there's a high likelihood that Zillow is going to contact them because they're searching on Zillow. And then they're going to be like, oh, I found the right house, but Zillow said that they have a buyer's agent in that area, so I'm going to use them, right? So you really have to show your value, otherwise you will be undermined by technology out there. Now, not to say to shy away from it. I encourage my people, my buyers, to continue to use whatever search engine they're happy with. I offer them my app and say this is a great way for us to communicate. But search on Zillow, send me the address. That's all I need, and then I can find private comments because of my software that I have access to that you do not, right? So use what you're comfortable with, but I can get you information you don't have, right? Something as simple as that. It sets in their mind that even if I can see it on public, Corin can get me something else. Help buyer negotiate the terms of sale, help with a price. And then the other is help with paperwork, 8%. Determine what comparable homes we're selling for, 6%. Help to determine how much home buyers can afford is 4%. So that's what that other 24% is. All right.
I'm
First step
kind of
in-
surprised by that. I mean, obviously the top layer of everything is find a right home, right? But just like you said, the majority of the basics are out there online. If it's a buyer who knows that there's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes, it's surprising to me that isn't a higher percentage, because they're not thinking about that yet. They're just
No,
thinking
they're
about just the aesthetics of the house that they pull in the driveway to.
yeah, you're right.
It's
I mean,
crazy
and that goes back to
that
what we
there's
kind of
so
talked
much
about is what's right in their immediate view, right?
Right,
They're
right.
looking at, if I don't find a house, then none of the rest of it matters.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, Tamara. Absolutely. Yeah, some of these numbers are definitely shocking, I guess, in some way. Yeah, so it's our job to again add value and make sure they understand it. All right, first step in stellar buyer service is being aware of their needs. You should have conducted a thorough needs analysis with your initial buyer consultation leading up to your signed agreement. If you didn't, it's your first step post agreement. That's honestly my buyer consult is, what do you need? Like, where are you looking? What's your attributes of the house? What's your timing? That's like my whole buyer consultation. I don't talk about myself unless they ask. I literally don't say I've been in the industry, but blah, blah, blah. I have all this experience. They can go search all that on the internet. I have a LinkedIn profile. I have my business page. If they're asking that question, then they're probably shopping other potential agents anyway. But anyway, my initial buyer's consult is literally all about them. And they do probably 70% of the talking. And then at the end, they feel like I actually listened to them. And now we can go look at houses because I already had all that information. So you do you as far as how your buyer consult goes, but that's how I do it. Let's see here. So when you get into the actual home search wish list, what they need, that actual step, right? Because your initial consult or that needs analysis might be how many ever months or days or weeks. Why is it important to revisit that needs analysis when you start looking at houses?
Needs can change.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. For example, somebody loses a job. They may have been pre-approved when you first talked to them, but if all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a job. So, we're a little bit slower on this house search, because I got to find a job. Pump the brakes. They're no longer qualified for a loan, right? You need to talk to their lender and be like, hey, I just, in case you didn't know, they just told me they lost their jobs. Did you know that? Because we need to go over what they're approved for now before we even start looking at houses, right? That's a major step, obviously, but it could be something a lot less. Maybe they got a puppy, right? Now they need a big backyard where before they didn't. Something even as small as that can make a big difference on what they're actually looking for. All right. There's a whole host of different ways, things that could change, but you know, we covered a couple of them. Yep, here you go. So basically they fall into two basic categories. You're either their lives have changed or their worlds have changed. And in either case, the buyer's needs change, whether changes in their lives, in the world around them. So natural disasters, something, you know, they can't control, or it's their lives, you know, added a puppy or a kid, or the kid moved out of the house. It's important to do it throughout the process too. If you've been doing it for a month or two, revisit them and find what their motivation is. Make sure it's the same. Because I found I have some clients that I've been working with for like 6 months plus, and they've lost pretty much all motivation, right? I'm the one reaching out to them and saying, hey, this house came up, let's go look, right? You're trying to motivate them. It's what they want still. They got frustrated because the right house didn't pop up, right? There's no inventory, that kind of stuff. So it's important to revisit that a lot. Some things to think about when you're doing that though is like, if they say, oh, I'm not really interested in that house that you send over to them, right? And it meets almost all their criteria you thought it was, dig into that and go, okay, well, help me understand. I thought this is exactly what you talked about a month ago. What's changed that this doesn't fit your criteria anymore? And sometimes that opens a can of worms. You find out a whole bunch of different things, but it's important for you to know that. And sometimes you're the last person to know, even though you're the most important piece in this step for them. All right. Thorough and frequently revisited and revised needs analysis is your greatest resource in having tough conversations with clients. Conversations about what they can afford, the realities of the market, timelines, and move-in ready versus fixer-uppers are strengthened by referencing the needs analysis. So can you think of tough conversations or maybe some awkward conversations that you should have upfront, but also throughout the process, that maybe you need to have with your buyer client specifically?
I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind would be a champagne taste on a beer cup. I want the glamour. Oh,
Yes.
we can do this. We can talk them down. We can talk them down. Not in this market. You can't, you know, and just having those realistic conversations about, you know, what is in that price point for them and what they can truly afford. Because it's not just about the here and now, it's 5 years down the road. Are you still going to be able to afford what it is that you're looking at today? So
that's great. And that can go both directions. You know, both from, as you put it, the champagne taste on a beer budget. You know, they maybe they have all these expectations, but they only want to spend this, right? And so you really do have to have that tough conversation. You can use the lender a little bit on that one, right? If the lender's only going to approve them up to here, then you have a ceiling, right? And another way to do that is I have 2 different things that I talk to my buyers about. I say, here's what you're approved for. Here's what you're comfortable with, right? Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes what you're approved for and what you're comfortable with is kind of what you're talking about. You have to have that tough conversation, right? Of, well, you know, actually in that case, if what you're comfortable with is higher, you still can only go up to a certain amount. If it's the other way and they're comfortable with lower what they're approved for, I tell them that's the amount we're looking for. I don't go up to the max of what they're approved for unless they're comfortable with it. That helps put their mind at ease that I have their best interest at heart. Because I also tell them sometimes lenders are going to approve you sometimes for way more than what you think you could afford. And so it's important to know what that payment's going to be. To your point, Tamara, they have to be comfortable with that well after getting the keys. The last thing you want to do is hear from them in 6 months and say, hey, we're in foreclosure, we couldn't make our mortgage payment. You know, that'd be a terrible spot to be in. So some other things to mention is don't buy things on credit. large purchases or really any credit pulls. So don't go to Target and go, oh yay, I got 10% off my $5 purchase. Woohoo! That can impact their ability to get a loan. If they're that tight on their underwriting for the mortgage. So don't get any new credit. Keep in contact with your lender, update them on whether or not you got a promotion or lost a job or any changes. It's important for realtor and lender to be updated. It says on here, don't quit your job, which is yes, that's a good thing. And it says don't get married, which is true, but you just need to update us and let us know that you're getting married. Don't say don't get married while you're looking for a house, but it's just that's a life change, right? Now you got a second income, maybe you can qualify for more, but it also doesn't back like what you're actually qualified for because they're gonna have to redo everything. So pay your bills on time, some of those more basic things that hopefully they know what to do. But some people don't, believe it or not. The biggest one is buying things on credit, especially when it gets towards the end and they're like, oh, I need a new refrigerator. Oh my God, my couches won't fit in this new house. Let's go get some new furniture. And a couple $1,000s or more later, they can't afford a house. So now they have couches that they have to go put in storage or sell somewhere because they don't have a house and they never will because they hose themselves. So how do you make sure you tell your clients this stuff? What's some ways that you can make sure you do that?
I feel like oh, go ahead.
I'm still learning how to put all the packets together, but somewhere along the way we learned kind of like in the introduction and the seller's listing packet of some sort to kind of like have these things in writing.
Yeah, Tamara, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, I mean, I feel like if I established a really good relationship, it would be through conversation. It just, through that relationship is a level of comfort. And you're a trusted partner. So you should be able to have these conversations saying, okay, next steps. And let's do some forward thinking. Maybe we're just in this negotiation stage, or maybe we're just now starting to go out and look for houses, but a couple of things to think of as we move forward. Let's make sure that we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not going out and buying a new car, don't change a job. And maybe they are, there's a lot of couples that go look for a house to buy so that when they do get married, they can move right in. Just making sure that both of them have been qualified for it, that they're doing the right things at the front end, rather than having to chase it at the back and having some unfortunate conversations later.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's great. And I think almost a combination of the both of you guys is like making yourself a checklist so that you don't get so comfortable with the process that you're like, oh, I've done this for 50 people already, right? They should know that. Well, no, because this new one hasn't heard you tell them that, right? So making yourself a checklist. So each step of the process has your, oh, that's right, I need to remind them of this now. So that, Tamara, to your point, they don't go and do it a week later and really put a damper on the whole thing. So making yourself a checklist so you don't forget is important. All right, now that we talk about how we can use the needs analysis to help our clients stay on track and discuss what conversations we need to have with them, let's talk specifically about showing homes. Showing homes is a process just like everything else. First, you need to find the home that fits your client's needs analysis. The MLS does have classes to help you do that. I'm not sure if KW has specifically there, but I'm sure you can ask any agent. It's relatively self-explanatory-ish. You just got to dig into it and kind of practice and set up your own search. Be like, hey, my house is this. Let's look at houses under that criteria and just figure it out for yourself. That's kind of how I did it. But there are classes as well to help you. You also need to make sure that your buyer is set up on your KW app and show them how to search for a home and follow the buying process with your guidelines. If you are going to share the KW app, once you have that set up, make sure that they are setting their search criteria as well as on Zillow or wherever they're searching, that it's within their top dollar. Because I've had many clients be like, oh, let's go look at this house. And I look it up on my system and it's like, they're approved for 350 and it's a $400,000 house. And I'm just like, I have to go back to them like every single time. No, we can't look. Well, it's been on the market for a week. Yes, we're not going to get a $50,000 price reduction because it's been on the market for a week. I'm sorry. So to avoid that type of conversation, you say, hey, when you are searching, search up to this point. It's my job to look at something maybe slightly past that I feel like we could get a good deal on, because it's a case-by-case basis. So look within your criteria. I'll help you find the diamonds in the rough if we're not finding anything truly within your criteria. That just helps, because those conversations are not fun when you're like, oh yeah, that's a great house, but you can't afford it. Like if you're having that every single week or day, you get frustrated. They may get frustrated and think that you're talking down on them, right? So you just have to try and avoid that so you don't have that issue. So again, when you're choosing homes, choose based on the needs analysis. In an extreme seller's market, you should not show homes at the top of your client's price point. Shouldn't show homes that your client would need closing cost assistance from the seller to purchase if it's an extreme seller's market, because that hurts their offer strength. Once your MLS search comes back with suitable homes for your buyer, preview those homes so that you can choose the best properties to show your buyer on your first trip out. Remember, you are showing your value by sharing your expertise. I don't always go in person to go look at them without my client, but I certainly dig into, like, when they have 15 houses, I'm going to pare that down to probably like 3, maybe. I mean, depending on what actually fits their criteria. And then if especially in an extreme seller's market, I'll text or call the listing agent and be like, hey, do you have any offers on this? Are you expecting any offers? What's the activity like? Get a little bit of background so we don't go see it and then get a call while we're in the house. Hey, that's pending. Sorry, had that happen. It's not fun, especially because my client really wanted it. So that's a fun conversation while you're standing in the living room of the house. But anyway, I digress. Learn from my lessons or my mistakes. Don't make them yourself. Let's see here. Showing homes best practices. So showing only the best properties for your buyer, ones that you have thoroughly screened in advance and meet your criteria. That's not always the case, but it's a great idea if you have the opportunity and the time. Have MLS printouts or electronic versions. I usually just have it on my phone. I take screenshots sometimes if it's not very good service, or if you have a slower phone, just take screenshots of it. So that way you just go to your photos and you can flip through it rather than, oh crap, it reset. I have to go look at this again. And then you're standing there staring at your phone rather than engaging with your client. Make sure they're within the location. You can put them on a map, make sure they're within the geographical area they want to look at houses. Do some research on the neighborhoods or the property itself. If you're not familiar with certain neighborhoods, maybe dig into it a little bit more, get some information. Find some recent comparables so you can answer pricing questions. That's a good idea. If you start looking at inventory in the market, you're going to get a pretty good idea of what kind of the pricing point is going to be, but inevitably, I would say probably 85% of the time, a client, and you're going to learn your clients too, but I've had a couple of clients, literally every single house. So what do you think about the price? Do you think it's fair? And you're like, it's the listing price. Of course it's not fair. They're asking for more than what they probably should have, but no, it's you have to eloquently be able to describe that, but knowing the market and the houses that in the area will help you better answer that question. And I usually don't give them an actual dollar amount because I'm just now seeing it for the first time. Even if I've done research, then I'm not going to give them like, oh yeah, it's exactly what I feel I should list this house for. I usually say, yeah, it's within the range that I feel it's priced fairly. Point out potential issues, concerns with each house. So that I think is more from their search criteria and wants and needs. I try not to, unless it's a major issue, like a foundation issue where I can tell like the roof is leaking or, that kind of stuff, I'll probably point out, but don't walk around the house and be like, oh, there's a little chip of paint over here in the corner. There's, that's not something that you need to help point that stuff out, because it shouldn't make or break the deal. And if you do that, then now it's stuck in their head that, oh, there's a paint chip on the corner that I wasn't even thinking about. I don't care about the flow of the house. So I know Jess said that she's doing open houses, but are you guys going around and looking at vacant houses or any houses? Anybody else, or Jess, if you do it a different way as well?
I just got my fingerprints approved last week, so I'm
Oh,
hoping to like actually like I don't know how to book myself like a tour through the house. I'll reach out to Erin, but that's kind of like the next step.
perfect. No, that's great. Anybody else that's been actively looking, or are you guys all kind of in a similar stage?
Similar stage.
Okay. Yeah, so open houses are a great way for you to get in, obviously, because that's literally what they're meant for, is to go look at them. Like I said, it's a way for me to look at how other people host open houses, the questions they ask, what kind of, promotional things they're doing, signage, all that stuff, to see if it caught my attention. I always know it works if I'm literally just driving down the road and have no reason to go to an open house, but then I see one and I'm like, oh, that caught my attention, I'm gonna go over here. Then I think about, what did they do? Why did that catch my attention? Was there a balloon on it? That kind of stuff. Once you get able to access houses through Central Lock, there's a way on RMLS to search truly vacant houses that just basically say go and show, and do that, because then you don't have to schedule a showing. You just literally just go over to the house, open it up, walk through, and then you can provide feedback if they ask. I usually just pretend that I had a client with me. If they're like, oh, did your client like it? I'm like, oh, well, it wasn't the right fit. That way you don't have to awkwardly say I was just previewing your house for myself. But you could do that too. It's not the end of the world, because a lot of people do it. You wouldn't be the only one. In fact, most good agents will do that, just because then they know what the inventory is. You sound more knowledgeable too when your buyer says, oh yeah, I saw this house come on the market. You're like, yeah, that was like 2 days ago. I already previewed it. It doesn't meet your criteria because, whatever. It's a total remodel job, right? And you're not looking for a fixer upper. Then they're like, oh, they're thinking of me. Like, it's not just Zillow that's doing the work. All right, once you're ready to show homes to buyers, always read the listing agent remarks. So private remarks. Once you get into RMLS, there's private remarks and there's public remarks. Public remarks, that's on Zillow, everybody can see them, right? That's not what your value add is. Private remarks do a lot of different things. It tells you if there's specific showing things. So like, don't let the cat out. There's a code to get in the front door. If you don't put it in, the cops are going to come show up. There's that, or there's, hey, the seller is willing to give a carpet credit for the right offer, right? There's a whole host of things that can be in the private comments. Always read those, because they could be, back when COVID was locking things down, it said like, you have to wear your mask throughout the whole thing, right? And you show up and nobody wears a mask and there's a camera on the front door, and then there's no way you're going to get an offer accepted on that, because you're just pissed off the seller and the listing agent because you didn't listen, right? That's an example, obviously, of an extreme case, but someone's like, wear booties, and you don't wear booties because you didn't read the private comments. Yeah, something even as simple as calling the listing agent to schedule an appointment when the instructions say clearly to use a scheduling service. They're going to get annoyed, right? There's an automatic thing that a lot of people use. You just literally go in there and says, here's this time frame that's open. I want this half an hour slot. If you call the listing agent to schedule an appointment, when they ask you to do that, guarantee you they're going to be annoyed. And then that sets you behind if you actually do write an offer on that. Or the opposite of that, it says don't use Central Lock or don't use the scheduling service, and you do, and then show up and the seller's still there, right? Because that's not how they schedule their appointments. So it's really important to read those. But that doesn't mean that you don't contact the listing agent for questions, right? Just because they want you to schedule through that. If you have any questions, your buyer does, or you want to ask if they have any offers or anything like that, call them or text them. Also, make sure on RMLS, sometimes there's attachments that answer some of those questions. Always make sure you look at for those as well. As a listing agent, we really appreciate feedback from the buyer's agent. And if you do a scheduling service, it'll prompt you for that. It's pretty easy to leave it, or if you actually are showing a client or you want to give your professional opinion as an agent, just text the agent or leave it through the showing service. Just even something as simple as shows well is bright and clean. It just helps them know that you actually were looking at it and cared. It also goes a long way to start building the rapport if you do ever find a client for that agent, whether it's for that house or not. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that Kathy, she left me some really good feedback on that house, and I didn't know that the water heater was leaking, and so I actually went and fixed it before it did some major damage, right? It's just, we're all in this together. Yes, we're competitors, but the better you start establishing a relationship with your coworker or your co-agents, the easier future transactions will be. Be ready with your home tour toolkit. I don't have one of these, to be honest with you. I do keep a tape measure in my car, because that is something that is asked for a lot. It's kind of common courtesy to leave a business card if it's an occupied house, just to let them know who was in there in case there's any issues. The cat gets let out, you forget to lock the back slider, somebody breaks in, something like that. They can know who was there and what time frame you were there. You don't have to leave that, but I'm just saying they can narrow it down basically. But feel free to bring any of these things as well, if you feel so inclined. Most of the time shoe covers and that kind of stuff are offered at site, but doesn't hurt to have them in your car. Safety. So you may or may not have gone through the open house. Sounds like probably most of you haven't, but tips for open houses. Always be aware of your surroundings. This goes for showings, in any case, and only meet clients that you've already vetted. Do not go to a vacant house with an unknown buyer alone. So sometimes it's not possible to meet them in person beforehand. However, I would strongly recommend meeting them in person first before you start showing houses, whether they're vacant or not, just from a safety standpoint, especially if they're looking at rural properties. But even in town ones, within your app on your phone when you're opening houses, there is a emergency phone number contact. So if you don't turn that off or say I'm okay, it'll automatically call your first person that you have in there. So there are some safety measures there, but just avoid getting into that situation to begin with. So just remember, if it doesn't smell right, doesn't feel right, bring somebody with you. Right? If you to go show a house without meeting them first, bring somebody with you. Definitely tell people where you're going to go. Your safety is paramount, right? So I don't want to scare you, but it's a reality, right? You're showing houses to strangers effectively. Just be aware of what you're getting yourself into. And if you ever need anybody and you don't have anybody available, find another agent that can come with you. If I'm available, I'd be more than happy to come help you look at a house, maybe not to Southern Oregon, but find somebody in your area that can know that, and just be on the phone with them if nothing else, right? Walk in and be like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go show the house, but here, hold on just a second, and you can play that game too. So safety first. When you're opening a house, always announce yourself, even if you think it's vacant or it's supposed to be vacant. I always ring the doorbell, knock, wait for a couple seconds as I'm opening the lockbox. And then when I first open the door, I knock again and then say, hey, real estate agent, hello. And then thankfully I've never had it, but in case somebody's in there, they're not expecting you. It's better to announce yourself than surprise somebody. So just be aware of that. It's just really easy to get in the habit. Knock, knock. Hey, real estate agent. I'm with Keller Williams. What's going on? And if you hear a response, you're not expecting it, then stop. Don't go in the house, right? Figure out what's going on first. So you see the camera there. Always assume you are being at least video recorded, if not audio recorded. So don't have conversations on site about offers. Advise your clients before getting there. Don't trash talk the house. Don't make fun of anything in the house. Even if it's the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. Save that for after site. And that includes driveways, or like if you're on the sidewalk out in front of the house, those cameras can see and hear you that far. Oftentimes better than if you're right up against it, right? So just be aware of that. Because if your client's bashing the house and then go, oh yeah, let's write an offer. I've had it happen on the sell side, not the buy side, but my sellers called me up and said, these guys were just totally just making fun of the house. Even if they write an offer, we're not going to accept it. It happens a lot. So just be aware of that. Your client's essentially shooting themselves in the foot if they are trash talking the house on site.
I thought that legally you couldn't record audio on individuals without their knowledge in the state of Oregon. So I
Those
was really
rings,
wrong.
those rings on the front door, those all are audio. They're just there. So
Yeah.
you can look it up. I don't know the legal ramifications of it, but it happens. They're all over the place. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Rings outside.
yeah,
Just
the rings
inside
outside
seems
are
weird.
the number one culprit of catching you. And a lot of people have cameras or put up cameras inside when they start showing their houses, for that exact reason. They want to catch the conversation about an offer or whatever. So whether it's legal or not, it happens a lot. From a legality standpoint, I don't know that actual rule.
I've just recently read an article that at the 9th district overturned the video recording or audio recording of conversations to be unconstitutional. So I believe it's supposed to be October 1st is when you're allowed to record, and you don't have to have permission.
Okay, it's also
That's
on
interesting.
it's also on their property.
Yeah.
So that might be a different rule, right? Because you're on their property, it's their house. So you're not trespassing because you have permission with an agent to go on, right? Or as an agent, but you're on their property. Can't do everything they want, but that also probably changes a little bit of the rules as well.
Yeah.
All right. So what your job is to not show homes, right? Your job is to sell them as long as it fits their criteria and they're comfortable. So as much as we all love looking at houses, I love it myself just because it's fun to see different houses. You don't get paid if you just show houses. Well, I take that back. You can't be a showing agent, but your job as a solo agent, which I'm assuming all you guys are, is to actually get them to buy a house. So just remember that, remember their motivation, remind them of their motivation. Pay attention to your buyer's body language, and cues to avoid continuing to show the homes that they don't like, even if they are the best one from your search. I literally just got done on this Friday. I showed a house to a client that checked every single box. We walked in and immediately I could tell the wife was not digging it. She was, the longer we were there, she kind of warmed up to a little bit, but it was never that sparkle in the eye. Because there is that sparkle when it's the right house. If it's truly for themselves, you can usually tell within about 10 minutes, if not sooner, that this is the house. When are we writing an offer, right? So if you're not getting that from your client, start asking questions that might dig into what's bothering them. And then maybe you'll help answer that thorn in the side. And then they can start enjoying the house and really start appreciating what attributes actually meet their criteria. But if you just let them kind of like, the heck why are we even looking at this house? Or nah, I'm not really feeling it. And you don't really approach that or broach that subject, guaranteed they're not going to make an offer. But if it's not the right house, it's not the right house. Move on. Be like, I can tell that I'm not getting a good vibe from you. Do we want to, let's maybe wrap this up and we can go see the next one that might actually better fit you. That way you're not wasting your time as well as theirs. And help them narrow the search as you're showing houses. So if it's not the right house, what I ask them every single time, it sounds remedial, but I'll do it with $1 million house. I'll do it with a $30,000 house. I say, all right, rate this house on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being, why the heck did we show up? This is a terrible house. It's a terrible, like it has nothing to do with what I want. 10 being the perfect house. And hopefully neither one of those exist, right? You don't have the perfect house. And hopefully I'm not showing you houses that are like, why did we even show up? So really it's a scale of 2 to 9. If it's a high 7 or an 8 or certainly a 9, let's talk about writing an offer. If it's a mid-range or not a really a confident 7 or lower, then let's move on to the next one. Give me feedback of why it's a 7 and what would make it an 8 or a 9. And that way you, as the agent, will help narrow down yourself what they're actually looking for. And they will also start mentally paring it down. So the next house, maybe it doesn't meet this. You're like, okay, well, the next house has this, and you're saying that's not what you want. Is it worth us even going to look at this house? So then you can write that one off, right? Now you're not wasting your time driving 10 or 15 minutes and showing them a house for 15 to 30 minutes. And then each time you show a house, your funnel, I guess you could say, is getting narrower and narrower. So you can start showing them actual houses that they hopefully will make an offer on. Your job is to help your buyer make the best decision for them. Buying a home is a big deal, and buyers can experience hesitation and reluctance. So they're afraid to commit. They don't like some minor detail of the house. They feel that they haven't seen enough homes. That's a big one. They need to sleep on it and or get the opinion of a trusted advisor. That one's a delicate one because you want them to feel confident and comfortable in their decision, but you also don't want them to sleep on it and not sleep in it. So you have to come up with ways to remind them that sometimes waiting on it is not the best idea. And that goes back to your initial consultation with them is, hey, sometimes you're going to have to make quick decisions. This is one of those moments where you need to make this decision. Otherwise, most likely tomorrow, this is not going to be available. And just remind them that if they choose to sleep on it, that's on their, you can't make them write an offer, but it's just reminding them of that. So if there's decision making, go back to their motivation, remind them of that, right? If you've seen houses where they really like some things, you can remind them, hey, remember you really like this feature of this other house. This has it plus. Needs and wants, obviously. If they have fears, be prepared to help them understand and appreciate those fears, but also help them understand why this is going to work out for you. And then calculated cost of waiting is a big one right now. People are like, oh my God, interest rates are so high, prices are so high. Well, if you're in the know, prices are most likely going to continue to go up, and rates may still go up a little bit before they even remotely dip at all. So just say, hey, if the prices go up and the interest rates stay the same, you're going to actually pay more for this in 4 or 6 months. And this house is probably not going to be there, and you're probably going to pay more for a less house. So do you want to wait, or do you want to buy this? Just a way to help you out with that. Really quickly, any ahas from that last section?
I did not know to leave a business card, perhaps as a measure of, like, in case there's a damage of any sorts. And I didn't know about the vacant homes. So thank you.
You didn't know about the what? Sorry, what was that last one?
That I should perhaps check out the truly vacant houses as well. Start there.
Yeah. Sometimes they just say courtesy text, and usually text a seller agent and the listing agent and be like, hey, I'm gonna go see this. And sometimes they don't even respond. Sometimes they're cool, show it, sell it, let's go.
Okay.
But sometimes they just literally say vacant. I don't want to hear from you unless you're writing an offer. I mean, they don't. That's the general sense. That's not actually what it says, but that's
Yeah.
That's my version of it. All right, so we've covered some common aspects of working with buyers from agreement to offer. Now let's focus on the sellers. So here's a similar graph, but just with the seller side of things. It's kind of a lot more split, right? The buyers was find me the right house. And this one has kind of equal parts almost all the way around. Help price competitively, help seller market home to potential buyers, help sell the home within a specific time frame, help seller find ways to fix up home to sell it for more, and then other. So there's all these are very important from a seller side of things, from a listing agent. And finding ways to fix up the home is something that I think takes practice and knowledge of real estate and what are value adds versus just cost money to fix or upgrade, that kind of stuff. So that's part of doing your market research, going around seeing what you feel kind of from like, oh, this kitchen is really nicely remodeled versus there's some nice brand new shag carpet on there, or something like that that's may not add value, but it's new carpet. The other category of 27% is help find a buyer for a home, 12%, help them with negotiation, dealing with buyers, 6%, help with paperwork, inspections, preparing for settlement, 5%. So I think if you go back to the buyer side, the paperwork part of things, I think it's relatively small in both of them. And so that's not necessarily a big value add to really like, hey, I'm going to do this for you. It's an important piece, obviously. It's probably even more important than they realize, but it's not necessarily something they're focused on. So just be aware of that when you're trying to like give your value add and proposition. It may not be as important to them as you think it actually should be. All right. We start in the same place with sellers that we do with buyers. Their needs analysis. For sellers, we need to know their price, time frame, and conveyances so you can get them great offers from able, ready, and willing buyers. So where are they going to go next? Should be one of the first questions you ask them. Why are you selling, and what's your next step plan? Those are going to be two huge indicators for how you're going to go approach this. Just as with buyers, when things aren't going as you think they should, you need to revisit and perhaps even revise their needs analysis. Just as with buyers, either the seller's life can change or the world around the seller can change. For example, the seller could lose their job, so carrying the mortgage on the house becomes even more difficult or impossible, thus changing their time frame. Could be, hey, yeah, we don't care, whatever, just want top dollar, we can just let it sit there forever, to holy crap, we need to sell it a month ago. And so it's really important to, especially if it's been on the market for a while, to revisit those. Perhaps the seller find their dream home, puts in an offer, and needs to remove any contingencies as soon as possible. Also changing the time frame. So if they don't have their house on the market and they find it and they put in an offer contingent upon selling their current house, that speeds up your process, because the longer you're not pending on their current house, the longer that dream home could be gobbled up by somebody else. Perhaps the local economy shifts, putting fewer buyers in that price range on the market, and or flooding inventory as people sell to move away. This could shift their price and their motivation. So again, just like everything else, stay in touch, over communicate, and know when you need to change your game plan. Jess, your microphone's on, just as an FYI. Yes, no worries. I couldn't tell if you were actually talking or if somebody around you was. All right, seller's control. There are just two things a seller can control: price and condition. Your job is to know the market and advise them how to get the best price with the least work in the quickest time frame. Therefore, you need to know your market to know how they can best prep their house. So when you're doing your seller's consultation, you're in their house, what is something you should be doing in that initial consultation when you're at their house for the first time? Besides talking to them about using you to list their house. How about touring it? Should you actually get the flow of the house and see where things are at?
That's what I was just gonna add, or ask, would it be appropriate during that time? I mean, obviously you've got a contract, right? You've got your listing contract.
Mhm.
ready. Having some checklists available to ask them if it's okay. Yeah, there you go. If you can tour the house, give them some suggestions of some quick DIY things. And then if
Mhm.
there's some things that are in need of repair, you could also have that checklist and have a list ready of contractors if that's what was necessary, or maybe some house cleaning services or anything like that, or some staging.
Yep, absolutely, all of that. And one thing you can do, some people do it, some people aren't comfortable with it. But what open house situations, is the seller there? Hopefully not. I just gave it the answer. So they have to be comfortable with either you and or other strangers being in their house when they're not there, right? So to kind of help set that tone is when you bring in the contract or the seller's property disclosure or your listing agreement or your listing presentation, sit them down at the kitchen table, hand them that, and then before you sit down, say, all right, as you're reviewing that, I'm going to go take a quick tour of your house. And what I'm going to do is I work with buyers as well. So I'm going to look at it from the eyes of the buyer. And I'm going to let you know when I come back, some of the things that as a buyer, they're going to see. You may not notice it living here because you live here. You've been ignoring it for how many ever years, right? So I'm going to come back and give you from the eyes of the buyer what they're going to notice and what stands out. And then we can talk about what's important to you, what your time frame is, what the price is that you're thinking of, and whether or not what your current condition of your house is matches that time frame and that price point that you're considering. And then that gives them the opportunity to be comfortable with you walking around their house by yourself, right? So it's already setting the stage of this is going to happen. And if they rebuttal that and say, I'm not comfortable with you walking around the house, and you'd be like, okay, well, then maybe we need to work on, me building trust with you. But here's the situation is once we list this house together, there are going to be other agents out there that you don't know, bringing in other buyers that you don't know that are going to be walking around your house. So how can we get comfortable with these people doing that? Because if people don't look at your house, then we're not going to be able to sell the house. So there's an opportunity for you to kind of set that stage, build that trust, and say, hey, I'm here. Like, I'm on your side 100%. Like, right. I want to help you sell your house. There's going to be other people that aren't. So you have to be able to be comfortable with that. Otherwise, it's going to be really challenging to sell this house. Oops. Some other things to think about, odors from pets, smoke, unclean conditions. But these are all things you're looking at when you're walking around the house, right? Cluttered, deferred maintenance. So some of the things that you were mentioning as well, personalized decor or painting, removing the sellers for showings is definitely something you need to broach. There are opportunities where they're not able to leave. Maybe they're sick or older for whatever reason, not as mobile. If there's guns in the house, you need to broach that subject. Make sure they're locked up or removed when you're showing this house. Just in general, when it's listed for sale, cash, jewelry, or other expensive items that are maybe easy to pocket. Especially for like open house situations. These are all things you need to approach and remind them when it comes to that open house, right? A week or two later, hey, by the way, take your jewelry box with you, lock up that gun safe, make sure they're all locked up and it's locked to something so they can't just grab it and leave. Especially in an open house situation as an agent hosting, there's no way you're going to track everybody that goes through there if it's a busy open house.
Are we liable if something gets taken?
That's what the errors and omissions is for, but technically, yes. And that's why there's some rules around who hosts your open house as a listing agent or that type of thing. You have to be within the same brokerage. Otherwise, you're not supposed to have somebody host your brokerage or your open house. And that goes for different market areas as well. I believe Southern Oregon and Eugene are in the same one. We're in the same, essentially, network, whatever you want to call it. But there are some other ones that aren't, that are still within Oregon. So there may be, like, say you have a listing in Corvallis, there's a market center up there that's not necessarily a part of the same region, I guess you could say, same ownership, basically. So the errors and omissions is different. It's a great question. Yes, technically, but I mean, if it's negligence on your part, like you saw them do it and didn't say anything, that's a little bit different than oh man, I was trying to keep track, but there's 20 people in the house, like, let's talk about this, right? There's different ways to go about that. All right. So we must apply the communication standards we discussed at the beginning of the session. Keep these in front of you as you look at conversation template. Help sellers see their listing through the eyes of the buyers. So what I talked about before, right? You're gonna bring that expertise to them and say, there's something wrong with your house, dude. Like, you may not see it, but how do we delicately talk about this? Provide a set to manage the expectation proactively throughout the transaction. Peace of mind for your client, enhances your credibility. So in your listing presentation, as you're working through them, you're going to agree to work together, right? And so then you reiterate their goals and say, hey, what I'm hearing you say is you want to sell it for this, and within this time frame, for this amount, and here's how we're going to set that goal. Like, here's how we're going to make that happen. Here's all the steps that I'm going to do. So some of the things to talk about are we didn't cover condition and location, or location rather. Location is not something the seller has control over, nor do you, right? So that's something that needs to be in that pricing conversation is, hey, your location is desirable or it's not. Have a delicate conversation around that and say, yes, your house might not, might be the best ones in the neighborhood, but the neighborhood itself is kind of run down. So this is going to impact your overall value because it's out of your control unless you go knock on everybody's doors in the neighborhood and convince them to fix their house up, which is not going to happen. And then just knowing, like I said, where they're going to move, where they're going to go to, listening to them. So that way you can, like I said, number 4, enhance your credibility that you're actually listening to them and can help them. What's the next step? Curb appeal, have them mow the lawn, have the maintenance service come over. If they're not able to take care of themselves, have somebody come over and maintenance. Keep that in the back of your head, because for me, I lost $1 million listing because I didn't offer to mow his front yard during listing. So just as an FYI, that's something that people do care about. Still stings a lot, just as an FYI. It's a $30,000 commission that I gave up because he didn't tell me that he wanted $300 in yard service. So I digress. Dress professionally, hopefully that goes without saying. Know who you're going to. Here in Eugene, it matters a little bit, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I dress pretty much the same if I'm dealing with $1 million client or somebody that's looking at a manufactured home in a park. As long as it's professional, but you got to know your Southern Oregon clients, or if you're dealing with somebody in Portland for whatever reason, you got to know what their expectation of you is. So just be prepared for that. Unfortunately, there is another uncomfortable conversation you may be forced to have with a seller. You may have to inform your client that they are violating the Fair Housing Act, and if they refuse to stop their course of action, you will have to withdraw their listing and cancel your listing agreement. According to NAR, if you have a client who is violating fair housing laws, you should follow these best practices. Remind the client of their obligation under Fair Housing Act and your policy not to discriminate. Discontinue representation of a client who has, in word or deed, what they've said or done, violated fair housing laws. Report the incident to your broker immediately. Fully document the situation in writing, including all client actions and those you took in response. And if you're unsure if a client is violating fair housing, consult an attorney or I would say first go to your principal broker immediately and see where the next step should go. Hopefully this won't ever happen, but that goes back to do everything for your client first and foremost, except break the law. So that's summarizing what I just read. So here's your Y4C2Cs that I talked about earlier. So this is why I don't recite them, because there's a lot there. Again, summary, essentially just be a good human, make the right decision. If it doesn't smell right, talk to somebody and make sure that you are looking at it from a fresh set of lenses. Win-win or no deal. Fair? So far, we have focused on our relationship and communication with the seller. We also covered seller needs and saw that sellers are looking for an agent to market their home. Let's talk just a little bit about how you are going to market the listing and your brand. Highly productive listing agents market both their brand and their listings at the same time. The marketing opportunity provided by listings is why they are one of the three pillars of a successful real estate agent's business: leads, listings, and leverage. When you focus on your listings, buyers will come. We've already talked a lot about how you can do this in our session on lead generation, particularly open houses. If you haven't covered that, you will, obviously. But yeah, that's an important thing. Open houses should be one part of your marketing plan, as they're highly leveraged. MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, has a 14-step marketing plan for listings. So make sure you read that, go over that in detail. But the three pillars for success: listings, leverage, and leads. Listings is on there because open houses, contrary to popular belief, is not usually finding buyers for that house. It is finding buyers for the agent hosting the open house. It may or may not be for that house, but most of the time it's a future buyer. So it gives you, that's the marketing of your brand and creating future business with your current business. So that's so basically capitalize on any listings you have. Hopefully, if you do it right, you should have at least one more transaction from any listing you come up with. And that either is another listing or another buy, if you market it correctly. So, and if you don't, then maybe you look into why, and talk to some other agents that are more successful at listings and how they generate future business with their current business. The message you put out to attract prospective buyers and sellers is everything. Why would they want to contact you in this market? What would they get if they did? These two questions are at the heart of all effective messaging. Especially in this market, everybody's vying for everything, right? You've got the high producers really going after everything. You got the brand new agents trying to get in the market, going after their friends and family or their sphere. Chances are people know at least two, if not way more agents, whether they know it or not. So just don't assume that your best friend or your family is going to use you. Remind them why they should use you, so you don't see a for sale sign from somebody else in your mom's front yard. It hurts. I haven't had my mom's sell, but I've seen fairly good friends, and just in my neighborhood, it stings a little bit. Oh, we lost somebody. Let's see here. Not only should you be strategic in how you market a home and yourself, much of which we've covered. Well, in lead generation, you haven't. More that you can learn about the. What the heck? I don't even know what that is. Anyway, I'll skip that. Sorry, I was reading it. Level up your lead generation. You should set up your listing for success by having all the necessary documents for your MLS, and that you're giving potential buyers and their agents the best view of the house. Don't use your phone to take pictures, please. Don't do it. It's only like $150, $200 to have a professional do it. Just have them do it. It saves you a ton of time and it looks way better. Let's see here. Yeah, just make sure you're familiar with what documents you need for the listing and all the stuff that put it on the MLS, basically. Utilize the right professionals, so they can, not only some photographers do pictures, but they also do floor plans, as well as measurements. And so they can just do all that for you instead of you having to literally tape measure throughout the whole house. Even a lower price listing is still a representation of you and your brand. So don't take shortcuts on a lower price listing to save a couple bucks, because it'll show up in your marketing. And people don't care if it's a $50,000 home or a really high priced home.
Question.
Yeah.
In this phase of trying to build my business, how do I say this in the best way possible? Do I just take what I can get, or do I try to like hit certain price brackets? Will I be like tied to those price brackets as my business grows? Like,
that's a fair question. I think what you'll find is you're going to organically gravitate to a majority of your business in a certain area, just based upon your personal demographic, I guess you could say, of your age, your state in life, your friends, your family, your job, your, whatever, or your past job, or, that kind of stuff, where you go hang out. So that's going to kind of organically take care of itself to a certain extent. However, if you want to change that, so your organic state changes to a different set, say you only want to deal with lower, like first time home buyers at a certain price point, focus your marketing on that, and that's where your business will come. If you want to do high-end homes and that's all you want to do, for whatever reason, focus your marketing on that and figure out how to market to them. So that's a great question. But I've literally done a $27,000 Momo home in a park, and I've closed a $950,000 deal. So, I'm prepared to do any of them. There's just not a lot of over $1 million houses here in Eugene area. So that's part of the reason I haven't done over $1 million, but just be prepared on those ones. Yeah, you're going to get paid more than likely, but time on market typically is a lot longer as well. So it may take longer to get that paycheck, but so hopefully that answers your question. It's a great question though. So yeah, when you're going live, when you're listing a house, just be aware of your market surroundings, what's going on. As an example on here, NFL game days, is that high impact in your area? Or for us in Eugene, duck days, is that not are you gonna get no traffic on especially coming up with football season? Holidays, is Labor Day a good weekend to go live? Probably not. Most people are out of town, but you never know. So that is all things to consider, and delaying by a week or trying to bump it up a week if you can may impact the traffic on your house and how much you actually can sell it for. So there's the RMLS, and then there's the KWLS. It's important for you guys to know that, because KWLS actually is a separate LS listing service that is KW specific, and it blasts it out to more than just what RMLS sends out there. It gets in front of all the Keller Williams agents, but also like these little tiny websites that are more geographically specific. So just remember when you're doing listings to put it in both. If you're looking at signage and social media ads and that kind of stuff, you can do that directly through Command. They have designs tab that you can play with and then post it directly to your social media. There's other things like Canva and that kind of stuff. Essentially, Command is Canva, just not quite as user friendly, and it's free. So that's part of the reason it's not as user friendly. But supposedly you get a little bit of discount on your if you do ads on social media, or it's a little bit more effective. But play with it, what works for you, if you're going to do that. But social media is free typically, unless you're actually paying for ads, and it's a very strong way to get out in front of people.
Sorry, quick question. Do we have to be like on brand colors and brand fonts and all that jazz?
So that's a great question. So basically the rule is that you have to put the KW logo on there at some point somewhere. So what you see, the KW DBA there up in the upper right hand corner, you're going to have one specific for your, we have Eugene, Springfield, and then there's the one for Southern Oregon, and then there's one for Sunset Quarter up in Portland, and blah blah blah. You have to have that somewhere on your listing or your ad, or just even a social media post. Well, if it's for a specific listing, if you're just posting something on social media, you don't have to always put the KW stuff on there. It just helps people know and remember that you are associated with real estate. So to answer your question, no, you don't have to stay on brand color. You guys are more than welcome to check out my business Facebook page if you are on social media. It's just at that one. I just look the Thompson team up on social media. It used to be at Corin, your realtor, but I think we changed the handle because we just formed the Thompson team a year or so ago. Actually, about 6 months ago, we actually rebranded it. But if you just search my name on social media, there's not too many Corin Thompsons out there. If you're expecting a listing, go talk to your office and talk to them about getting a signage. Sometimes they have generic signage that you just get a name writer underneath. But worst case, just get a generic KW one that put up and then order one with your name. Or you can order it pre if you have money. They're not terribly expensive. Initially it is because you have to get the post, you have to get the, everything included with it. But you also have to be aware because we're allowed to brand ourselves again with Keller Williams on there somewhere. So like I said, you can look at my new Thompson team logo as kind of an example of, we chose to stay with the black and red because those are my two favorite colors, but we didn't have to. And some of our marketing is different colors too. And just be aware business cards and signage have to have independently owned and operated, the fair housing logo, and something else. I can't remember. Talk to your principal broker, they'll be able to tell you. But signage in a listing is very important. Let's see here. I think that's it. Oh, co-agents. We'll skip the ahas because we're pretty much at time, but co-agents, I mentioned it earlier briefly, very important to establish relationships with your co-agents or competitors or whatever you want to call them. It goes a long ways. When I work on the opposite side of somebody I already know, you're already skipping that step of introducing yourself, building that rapport and that trust with them if you already know them and have already had that interaction. So it's really important to come into the office for your KW, but also go into open houses to other agencies and say, hey, I'm with Keller Williams. Hey, just want to introduce you in case we sit across the desk from each other at some point. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm planning on being successful in this business, and I would love it if you also are successful. So at some point, we're going to sit across the desk from each other. Nice to meet you. I'm Corin. What's your name? How long have you been doing this? Let's see if we can get a deal together. It'd be fun to work together if we like each other, right? Don't underestimate the power of knowing people, whether it's your client or your competition. It also helps you potentially negotiate if you know someone's a complete not your style. Then you can go about negotiating a little bit differently than if you already know that, oh yeah, when they offer you something, it's because it's probably their best option for everybody. It's not, they're not trying to negotiate up or down. That's yeah, I think that's it. As achievement. So hopefully you got something out of this. I'm okay hanging out for a little while. If you guys have any specific or general questions, if you want, like, how did you handle this situation, or just in general, some of the topics that we covered a lot today. So ask any questions. I'm here to answer if you guys have anything.
I have questions about wells.
Wells?
Yeah.
I can try and answer them for you. Sometimes it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So if it's too specific, then I probably won't be able to, but I'm more than happy to give it a shot.
Is there like a standard depth for most wells in the Eugene area? Okay.
It depends on where you're at. I mean, some go really shallow, some go, it's just where the water source is at. So
literally where it is.
Yeah, there's no specific as far as that's concerned. My contact information is in the chat, so if you guys want to write that down, if you have any other questions, feel free to afterwards. But go ahead if you have any other questions. Like I said, I'm still here. I just was writing that in there. And then that's my Facebook
training
business page.
This is
What's that?
I said thank you for today. It's been really informative for me.
Good. I'm glad. I'm wish you guys best success. And while Pamela, I'm not down in your market center, I'm more than happy to be a reference or a resource for you. If you have any questions or just need feedback, you're struggling getting going or getting motivated, we all are there. I think you're the one that referenced the fire hose. It is absolutely a fire hose to the face. And it's a lot. It's a ton. And this isn't even really touching like the actual running your business side of things. Like this is literally just like, how do we look competent in front of our clients?
Exactly.
So there's so many aspects of it. You are truly a business owner, and it's a big step for a lot of people. And so if you put in the effort and ask the questions and don't be afraid to be wrong, you will go a long way. So just know you're not alone in feeling like you're overwhelmed. We all do that. Even being more veteran, you still get to that point.
Yeah, I think for me, I was talking to one of the other agents here in the office today, and I was telling him, I was like, I kind of look at everything, I'm very analytical. And so I look at the process as playing chess. So yes, I need to start right here, but I need to plan for 10 steps ahead so that when I'm on the phone trying to get that appointment, I'm not panicking myself by what's next. So I almost have to go into things backwards from, oh, great, let me look at closing and then go backwards so that I kind of know what to expect. Because I really want to call on expireds, but I'm terrified of getting on the phone with them because it's like, okay, great, if I get the appointment, then what?
Yeah.
I don't want to stumble over my words when I get them on the phone because
Yeah.
I'm anticipating an oh crap after that moment of, yeah, I'd love to meet with you.
Yeah.
Great. Now I'm really in a panic.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, you don't know what you don't know. And that's part of where we're at. It's being prepared, absolutely 100%. But there's no way to be prepared for every contingency. Almost every deal has some nuances. Jess asked the question about a well. That's not usually that's honestly never a question that I've been asked. I just know the answer because of my lending experience. But that's something just to be prepared, right? I had the experience to answer that question definitively. I know that is what the answer is. But if I don't know the answer, I'm going to say, Tamara, I don't know the answer. I haven't had that experience in my real estate world yet. So I have some great resources back at the office. I have some principal brokers and my coaches that are on my team that almost guaranteed one of them has. So let me go ask and make sure that I get you the right answer rather than just telling you an answer that's not correct.
Oh yeah, I am absolutely, I may not know off the top of my head, but I will find out and I will get back with you.
Exactly.
But when I'm calling on an expired, I can't call them back with an answer. I need to know what I need
Correct.
to do with that.
Yeah, you need to know
That's
enough
what
to get
kind
that
of
point.
panics me because I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, the moment they say, okay, yes, I'm prepared for the no's. Those are going to happen all day long. But when I get the yeses, I got to know what to take with me. And that kind of panics me if I don't know what to do first.
Yep. No, and that's great. Absolutely. I would just caution you not to put it off too long because sometimes the best experience is to actually make the calls. The other thing I would recommend for anybody is we don't call them scripts anymore, but I like to call them controlled conversations, but other people don't like that. But it's effectively knowing like how to control the conversation, right? People are scared by scripts. They're like, oh my God, it's so awkward, it's so uncomfortable. Well, let me ask you this. To your point, Tamara, you're on the phone or you're in front of a client and they ask you a question or they give you some kind of a pushback and you haven't had that practice yet. And you fumble through your words, you don't know the answer, they hang up on you and you can, to your point, never call them back, right? So you just had a $10,000 cost for a practice with an actual client rather than a free practice with Tamara and Jess on the phone with each other or in person, right?
Yeah.
You screw up, Tamara, with Jess. Jess is maybe laugh at you. Probably not, but maybe. You guys both laugh at each other.
I laugh at myself all the time.
You laugh at yourself, right? But if you screw up with Jess, you didn't lose a $10,000 commission check.
Exactly.
So if you practice with other people, other agents that are maybe just as new or even more experienced than you and give you some feedback on, oh, that didn't sound right. Hey, maybe tweak this a little bit, or yeah, that was perfect. Great job. Don't change it. Or give you a pushback that you've never had before. Then it makes you think about it. And now you're on the phone call with an actual client tomorrow and you're like, oh, that's right. Corin had an objection. They asked me the same exact question. I know what to say.
Right.
Don't do that on the phone because as much as you want to do that, you're like, yeah, I know the answer. But you have that experience, right? And you got to practice for free rather than it costing you $10,000 because that's the average commission check.
For sure.
So, I'd rather practice for free.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely, knowing what to say, I'm pretty comfortable with that type of thing. With getting on the phone with somebody I've never met face to face and being able to have a comfortable conversation. I think for me, it's what do I take with me when I do meet with them? Oh my God, I have to be prepared. And I have to get that out of my head so that I'm not thinking about it while I'm on the phone with them.
Yeah, if you overthink things while you're trying to have an actual conversation, you're not listening to them.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Absolutely. So shameless plug for my buddy Matt Spate up in Portland. He does script practices from 8:20 till 9 a.m. Thursday,
on it with
or
him all
excuse
the
me,
time.
Tuesday through Friday. So if you're not on there, I would highly recommend doing it. And if you want just a script partner, you know, a couple days a week, I'm more than happy to get you started. But that's a great resource for you because there are newer agents as well as more veteran agents that are going to help you understand what to look at. And they usually help me out. It's been a while, and they usually have like kind of a topic that they either talk about or kind of focus on for that week or a few days or whatever it is. Yeah. I know that's changed a lot over the last couple of years. It was kind of like recycling the same thing week in and week out, and they had the same like core 4 people, and they're like, okay, we've already covered this, guys. So it's probably a little bit different format, but that honestly, I did that when I first started, and it got me real estate focused 4 days out of the week.
Yeah.
I was really struggling getting up and going, there's so much to do. I have no clue where to start. I don't know where to what to study. I don't what and then I would sit there and do nothing or procrastinate or scroll through Facebook or whatever. And next thing I know, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've done nothing business related. And then I feel bad. And then I wake up the next day going, oh my God, well, how am I going to make up for yesterday? And then the next day does the exact same thing. So it's 40 minutes. It gets you focused. It gets you thinking about real estate. And then at 9 o'clock, you hit the ground running, making those phone calls, whatever you need to do. It honestly kept me in the business. If I hadn't done that, I would have failed because I was such a, I don't know what to do. So that's why I always plug it. It's so easy to do, even if it's 1 or 2 days a week. Just go do it. But anyway, any other questions that you guys have or comments or any conversation?
Thank you.
Perfect. You are welcome. I'm so glad that you guys showed up. And hopefully Kathy got something out of it as well. Tamara, if you know her, please say goodbye for me and share my share my contact information with her. Yeah, like I said, feel free to dig through our Facebook page. I have an Instagram as well. It's kind of a mix between personal and business. So the business Facebook is probably a little bit better for you to actually see business. Yeah, steal whatever you want. I mean, we have stuff branded on there, but my favorite thing, and Matt probably uses it a lot if you're in scripts, is R&D is my favorite thing in real estate. It's rip off and duplicate. It's not research and development. It's rip off and duplicate anything and everything you can.
So for years, I did project management for a really long time.
Yeah.
And R&D was always rob and duplicate. I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
A wheel that's already rolling and it's nice and smooth.
There's no point in recreating what is already there. Exactly. And I mean, you'll see there's a lot of memes that we do on Monday and Friday, especially on our Facebook page. And most of those are from real estate pages that I'm a part of. And I literally, either my wife or I pull those off and then slap our logo on it and post it as our own.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so easy.
Why not?
Like, I mean, why redo it if it's already funny? I get so many comments because Friday we do Friday Funny, and it's real estate related, but it's making fun of something, right? It's a funny whatever. I get so many people that are like, oh my God, your Facebook page is so hilarious. They don't even mention the fact that there's like other actual real estate posts on there, right? They just are like, oh my God, I stay tuned for your Friday because it's freaking hilarious. It gets me going into the weekend. It's amazing. I don't care if they read the actual statistics. I can spout those off when we actually talk to them, right? But they recognize me as the funny, relatable realtor. I've done my job, right? They think of me. Yeah. So anyway, all right, ladies. Well, it's good chatting with you, and you guys have a good run. Don't be afraid to reach out, and Jess, hopefully I'll see you in the office at some point.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.